started streaming, by the way. Our audio won't be going through, so don't worry about that.
Cool. No problem.
But I'm just concerned about one thing.
Sorry, say again.
Just worried about one thing.
What's that? What's that, Mark?
That it keeps doing the wrong.
Wrong.
Well, the track isn't showing properly.
What on track map?
Yeah, well, I don't know when it's supposed to be showing, but it's not showing properly. So
It should be showing. It's, yeah. Obviously, because they would have loaded it already. Unless your screen capture thing is on the wrong side of the screen. It's capturing the wrong part of the screen, maybe.
no, because it just said not something went wrong when on the original track.
I told you it was going to happen. Pierre Gasly to Alpine, Nick de Vries to AlphaTauri.
Mhm.
Let me pull up the stream and see what it looks like.
I am enjoying looking at the stream. Stream is live.
Yes, we have one person watching, which is probably me.
And then me joining now, so it'll be another person.
I don't think we're going to have many people joining this. It's just so early in the morning.
Yep.
It's showing the track map fine.
No, but it's not. I want to see whether or not people will come on.
Yes, Mark, you'll only see that once the session actually
Yeah,
starts.
I know. Just hold on, because it's a different thing completely. It's grabbing from a different source completely. That's why I'm just concerned. It's the only thing that's concerning me. Um. Okay. Okay. Now the next thing is,
Mm-hmm.
where's your DSTV?
It's playing at the moment. What do you mean, where's my DSTV? Hello?
Hello. Sorry.
What do you mean, where's my DSTV?
So, as in, like, where are you with the stream? What is it doing right now?
I'm watching Paul de Resta.
Okay. Just I need you to tell me the exact thing that he's saying, so we can match it up as. So just repeat what he's saying,
I
or
really
when
don't think we're going to be able to sync it, Mark.
more or less can. So I say so.
I've got someone dancing in a Ferrari shirt.
Yes, and now it's looking at the AlphaTauri.
Yes, we're in
Okay.
sync already.
Yeah. Okay, so just let me know when you want to start chatting.
Cool, up to you. When you're ready, I'm
Just
ready.
checking on James. Cool. All right. I will start, and then we can just chat. Question: when I speak before I go on, do you hear a fan or noise, or do you just hear me? Please.
Trying to hear.
So if I speak, do you hear a fan, or do you just hear me talking? I mean, does it sound absolutely
No,
fine
I
and
can
clear?
just hear you talking.
Okay, cool.
Let me
Cool.
just see something. I'll be back now. I could just hear my mom's hairdryer, so
Cool. All right, we're gonna go
cool, let's go.
live in 3, 2, 1. Alright, hello everybody, and welcome to Forever Motorsports. We will be doing audio throughout and be helping you understand what is happening during this qualifying in Japan. A very interesting race weekend set up for us as Max Verstappen goes quickest in practice 3, just in time for qualifying. Obviously, we know Max Verstappen in chase of the Drivers' Championship. So, Reese, any thoughts from practice 3? Your thoughts, any information for people to understand what had happened earlier today?
Well, I think we were expecting to see Red Bull near the top of the timesheets with this track ready, just suiting their car with the high-speed corners as well as the long straights. Ferrari are quite close though behind, so it should be quite an interesting qualifying session here today. Obviously, in FP3, we saw Charles Leclerc just getting pipped by his teammate at the last second. Very close between the two Ferrari drivers, at least. So, definitely a lot to look forward to.
Yes, indeed. And we are 8 minutes away from the start of the qualifying session. The crowds are packing in. It is a very, very full stadium. The good news about qualifying right now is that we are dry currently. There's no rain. The track is dry. We are looking for an easy qualifying session without any hindrances at all. Seeing lots of different fans in the crowds, lots of orange jackets, Red Bull jackets, all these different supporters. So a nice mix of fans in the crowd as we see Max Verstappen is now all in his gear, just about to get to this car, I assume, chatting to his engineers. And Reese, your thoughts on how Max is going to fare this weekend?
Well, I think he quite enjoys this track. Obviously, we haven't had anyone else winning except for Mercedes in the turbo hybrid era, so it would be great to have a different winner here in Suzuka. But I think that it will be a good weekend for Max this weekend, coming off of the absolutely terrible weekend that he had in Singapore. I think he needs it this weekend, well, if he wants to win the championship. But
Yes.
he can take the championship this weekend if he wins the race as well as gets the fastest lap, then nothing that his rivals do will be able to stop him from taking the championship this weekend.
Yes, so a very, very big weekend in that regard. So we could potentially see Max Verstappen win the Drivers' Championship in Suzuka, which would be a very, very interesting, well, not very interesting, but a very, very telling season for the rest of the teams. In that Red Bull are really well ahead of the pack as we know they are. So can they try and solidify their consistency that they've done this season? As you say, last weekend, not a good weekend at all for Max. Could have potentially made it much easier this weekend for him to get that Drivers' Championship. However, if he should win, as you say, and get fastest lap, that is it in the bag. But his teammate, Sergio Perez, obviously had a fantastic weekend last weekend, winning after starting second on the grid. So what do you think of his potential race this weekend?
Well, Sergio Perez was looking a little bit off of the pace in free practice 3 with him finishing all the way down in fifth, with Fernando Alonso actually beating him out on the timesheets up in fourth. So it will be very interesting. Sergio Perez seems to prefer street circuits to the more traditional circuits, but hopefully he is able to put a clean lap together and is able to get there up into the top four, which will obviously help Red Bull with the strategy for tomorrow's race.
Yes, indeed. And obviously, what's also quite interesting is that in practice two, at the end of practice two, we had two Mercs finishing quickest in after that practice there. So the Mercedes this weekend, do we reckon they can be a bit of a dark horse in terms of competing?
Well, I think that's purely down to the wet weather running. We're seeing, as of free practice 3, that they finished down in sixth and seventh. So I think there will be maybe the third team in contention this weekend. But I don't know if they're going to be fighting for the top spots.
Yes, and
Maybe
we
I
are.
could be wrong. We'll just have to see.
Well, Ferrari obviously not finishing too far off Max Verstappen at the end of practice three, which was a more telling idea of how we should expect qualifying to go. Only zero point 0.3 seconds, or just under zero point 0.3 seconds between Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz. So Ferraris this weekend, do they get their strategy right? Do they try and stop Max Verstappen from winning the Drivers' Championship again, in terms of their finishing this week?
Oh, I think it will definitely be quite a difficult feat to achieve to stop the Red Bulls. But yeah, we will have to see. I think Red Bull are going to like try everything here this weekend to win the drivers' championship here in in Honda's hometown. So yeah,
Well, we are now looking at at the track right now. Looking at the two. Um, sorry, just looking at the different DRS zones and looking at the track's windiness and everything. It's a very fun track. This is obviously a lot of drivers saying this is one of their favorite tracks on the calendar. Your thoughts on Scusa and where does it line up in your favorite tracks of the season?
yeah, Suzuka is definitely one of my favorite tracks. I'm glad to have it back on the calendar. We haven't been here as well since 2019. It's definitely one of the classic tracks. We've had the likes of Ayrton Senna racing here. I was watching earlier in the weekend just some replays or side by sides with the last racing that we had here and Senna back in the day, and it's incredible how much faster these new cars are. It's just such a classic track here, and yeah, just very happy to have it back.
Yes, indeed. And we are very, very close to the beginning of qualifying one, or the first session of qualifying. Only 3 minutes away. Seeing all these signs here from the fans saying, "Welcome back to Japan," and "Thank you, Sebastian, for all that he did." Obviously, a lot of Japanese fans will be quite fond of Sebastian. As a lot of them are Red Bull fans, with obviously with their Honda engine, and Max Verstappen, Sebastian Vettel, obviously a legend for the Red Bull team. Also, just a legend for any racing fan, of course. And now
It's the
heading into his
legend of the
last,
sport at this
yes,
moment.
and obviously heading into his final few races. So, do you reckon Vettel can pull off any interesting races before the end of the season, or do we think it'll just unfortunately be stock standard, more or less in the middle of the pack?
I'd love to see Vettel winning a race, but unfortunately, I think that's a bit far-fetched. But you never know. Things can happen in Formula One, so never say never.
Yes, and now we can see Charles Leclerc is getting his helmet on and getting ready to get into his car. Sergio Perez already waiting in his car. Um, the number 11 showing, obviously. He doesn't look too concerned. The AlphaTauri is also ready to get going. Of
Yes,
Pierre
a
Gasly.
big big news over the evening was announced last night that Pierre Gasly will be moving to Alpine for next year. They have signed him, and in his place, AlphaTauri have signed Nick de Vries.
Yes, indeed. Some big news coming out with regards to how next season's shaping up with different drivers and all of the contracts being signed and teams deciding that this is their way forward going into the next season. So still some movements to be made from a couple of teams, but now starting to get a clearer picture of who's going to be racing next season. And it is interesting that we're now going to have two brand new faces into Formula One alongside. In that Nick de Vries will be joining as well. So a very interesting season, hopefully. How do you think our two? Because obviously now Nick de Vries will be joining
AlphaTauri.
Oscar Piastri as well as a new driver on the grid. So how do we reckon these two new drivers will fare? Do we reckon they're ready?
Well, I mean, Nick de Vries is not a rookie by any means. He has won the Formula E, I think, at least once already. So he's definitely no newbie. He could be doing quite well. And I think he'll fit in quite well in the Red Bull team, or obviously it's in AlphaTauri, but um, within the Red Bull family, I think he'll fit in quite well. He seems like quite a confident driver, and we saw that in his first outing in Monza.
Yes. As I said, the interesting thing, of course, being that he's already a better driver than Latifi, points wise. So Latifi, out of 20 drivers, 20 standard drivers on the grid, is currently coming 21st in the um, points
In the
standings.
standings, yes.
So
We
yes,
now have some cars out on track, the likes of a Mercedes as well as both of the AlphaTauris at the moment.
yes, indeed. And we have the first session of qualifying is currently underway. So we have got just over 17 minutes left of this qualifying session
Some
going.
frantic work being done on Charles Leclerc's floor at the moment.
Yes, we have Latifi, Sonoda, and Gasly on track. Um, so we will see how they fare as they want to put in their first couple of laps.
Yuki Tsunoda just coming now into the last sector on his warm-up lap. Hopefully we should see some push laps being done quite soon. Thank goodness we have some dry running here this weekend. Always good to see dry running here in Suzuka. Obviously the first two practice sessions here this weekend were absolutely wet, just full wet weather. Full wet weather running on intermediates later into practice two, but just glad to have dry running here today.
Indeed, and as we are now seeing first sector purple from Sonoda, as we've got our first good laps coming in. We will see how they fare with regards to all of their times now. Uh, but
Gasly has now taken that purple sector away. Actually, no, Yuki Tsunoda has now taken that back from Pierre Gasly.
Yes, and of course we've now seeing a new purple sector now from Gasly, and now we have our first time from Latifi, a 1:35.9 to beat no purple sectors in his lap time, so we'll see that time drop surely straight away as Gasly goes around in a 1:32.0. So starting to see some decent times, and again Sonoda puts in a 1:31.6. So we have three times on the board already getting quicker on each other as we've now got Norris joining the track. Um, we'll see how he fares this weekend as well.
Yeah, you just see how fast these cars are. Obviously going into 130R, that is a flat out corner, normally in eighth gear, over 300 kilometers an hour, a full left hand corner. It's just incredible what these cars are able to achieve.
Yes, and we now see lots of cars are now starting to get ready and enter for the track, enter the track rather. So we now have Verstappen, Perez, Russell, Hamilton, Norris, and Vettel and Stroll all out on track, getting their laps underway or getting their out laps done. A terrifically fast track, this Suzuka track. So, as we say, should suit the Red Bulls quite well in that regard. Um, but of course, never say a sure thing will happen, of course. But I'm fairly certain you probably will see a dominant Red Bull weekend again. Max Verstappen should most things go right for him, even with a couple of glimpses. You'll likely see him finish first this weekend, which all but guarantees his driver championship. Of course, if he gets the fastest lap with that, it does indeed guarantee him the driver's championship.
Currently following Lando Norris's lap. It looks like Nicholas Latifi's lap was discounted, as it is currently showing no time on the board.
Indeed, must have infringed on track limits.
Yes, as long as he didn't go the wrong way like he did in free practice too. I still can't believe Latifi, who has already done a full practice session, was able to turn the wrong way down one of the corners.
Yes, I know. It does sort of unfortunately sum up the the I just suppose just Latifi in general in Formula One. As we have now got less than 12 minutes left of qualifying one, almost all of the cars out on track, um, getting ready to
Everyone
put in.
except for the first three drivers are currently out on track.
Indeed. So we are now starting to get some times in, just about as they're coming down their start-finish straight. And we see Norris go fastest with a 131.4. Hamilton behind Tsunoda with a 131.8. Russell again behind Tsunoda with a 131.7. So Tsunoda putting in a little bit of a decent time early on for his home fans. As Perez goes much faster in the fastest lap now with a 130.6. So Perez currently leading in qualifying session 1. And Verstappen then now puts in the quickest lap of the qualifying, as we are expecting him to see put in some very good times today with purple sectors throughout and a time of 130.2. So should be looking at some sub 130 laps pretty soon.
Yes, Max Verstappen just going quite a lot faster. Now, the track ramping up, it is great to see some dry running here in Suzuka. Just such a lovely track to watch. Max 4/10 faster than his teammate so far.
Yes, and Carlos Sainz comes in much closer to Max Verstappen, still behind, but put in a new purple sector in sector 2 with a 130.3. So Carlos Sainz getting very, very close to Max Verstappen there. Schumacher puts in a decent time, putting himself into 7th at the moment with a 131.5.
Yes, I think the track is just starting to rub it up now, so people are starting to be able to set faster laps. So I think we should be able to see Yuki Tsunoda improving on his past qualifying lap. But it is very important for Mick Schumacher to have a good race weekend now after his incident in FP1. He needs to show some pace now. He needs to ideally outqualify his teammate.
Yes, we are heading into the crux of the season, and for drivers such as Mick Schumacher, it's imperative that those sort of mistakes do not happen. So really not helping his cause for next season with that crash in practice
Charles
earlier.
Leclerc has now put himself into P3.17 behind Max Verstappen's time at the moment.
Yes, so we are
Seems like
looking.
Carlos Sainz prefers this track to Charles Leclerc so far.
Indeed, and we have seen that every now and then this season where Carlos Sainz has outperformed his teammate in qualifying and then subsequently sometimes the race. Um, I mean, Leclerc obviously the favorite driver for Ferrari, of course, but Carlos Sainz being probably one of the much better secondary drivers out of all the teams. Obviously, George Russell being another who has consistently outperformed his teammate, and one could argue as if anything, been a bit more of acting like a number one driver this season than Hamilton in terms of consistently finishing near the top of the pack.
Nicholas Latifi, obviously, with a 5 place grid penalty for his incident in Singapore. We were expecting to see that though this weekend. I called it shortly after the incident. I said he will be receiving a penalty for that for sure. As
Yes,
Alonso has now put himself up into fourth position, only
indeed.
point 0.3 behind Max Verstappen, so currently outperforming Sergio Perez yet again.
Yes, Alonso doing Alonso good things, of course, putting in consistently good qualifying times. Uh, it's just still, as I say, we say it every weekend and we talk about it, but it's just so great to see Alonso still managing to perform so well in Formula One, obviously being such an old driver in comparison to all of the others on the grid. Next year we will have, you know, Alonso racing against the likes of Nick de Vries and Oscar Piastri, who are pretty much half his age. So a very interesting time, of course, with Formula One next season, with Alonso still being there. But so great to see him still putting in such good performances week in week out, and to
Like
be
Pierre Gasly is having problems with his brakes at the moment, which is definitely what you do not want around this track. It is such a brake intensive track.
yeah, so currently right now, if we look at our grid, we see that all of the usual teams are doing well in terms of qualifying one, except for the likes of Mercedes, who currently have Hamilton down in 19th and Russell in 16th with regards to their lap times. It's quite crucial that they get back on track as soon as possible so
Ooh,
they
with
can
a
get
big
some.
lockup from Yuki Tsunoda down to last chicane. Just watching a replay at the moment. What's quite interesting is that the official tracker does not say which tires both Mercedes were on. I would assume they would be on softs.
Yes, as everyone is on softs, except for
Okay,
the
I can
likes
see on the.
except for the likes of Russell and Hamilton, who
Yes, I can
who
see
said
now on the official stream they up were both on mediums.
yes. Russell and Hamilton, when they completed their first laps, were on mediums. They are now on the soft tyre. Uh, so there we go. We just get an explanation there as to why they went out on mediums to start the qualifying session. Is apparently to save and to have more fresh sets of soft tires for later. Sonoda not happy with his team radio there when they're telling him to work on the brakes as he's going round.
Yuki Tsunoda always is very outspoken on the radio, which has upset the likes of Red Bull over the past few months. He's had reprimands with Helmut Marko over it, with him being quite stroppy over the radio at times, not listening to what his team are telling him. And I think it's so crucial um, at this level of motorsport to listen to every little bit of feedback that you get from the team and actually take it, and because it's definitely able to help you extract that little bit of time.
Yes, and not much more time left in this session, just under 3 minutes left. So we will see now. Hamilton goes seventh with a 130.9, so he's put himself into the clear at the moment. And his teammate Russell with a 130.8. So again, both Mercedes now on the soft tire have moved into the position to take themselves into qualifying two. So drivers right now at risk of dropping out are Alex Albon, Nicholas Latifi, Sebastian Vettel, Kevin Magnussen, and Zhou Schumacher in 15th right now is the driver at risk. And the drivers on track right now, we have Magnussen, Hamilton, and Russell, Mick Schumacher, Valtteri Bottas, and yeah, actually, most drivers on track except for the Red Bulls, as far as I can see. Red Bulls and the Ferraris, I
Uh,
don't see. Red
yeah,
Bulls
Red Bull,
indeed.
Ferraris, as well as Fernando Alonso, do not think it is necessary to go out and complete another lap. Obviously, their times, they have done calculations that no one is going to be able to best their times, or if they do, they shouldn't fall out of the top 10.
Yes. Coming to the end of qualifying one, we should see most of our top teams finish within the qualifying zone. Sebastian Vettel
It's
getting ready
getting
to.
ready to start his,
Mm,
yeah, flying lap. Let's see if he's able to improve on his last lap time.
Let's put in a green first sector. And green
Currently,
again for the second sector. So Vettel uh, looking to improve in his time.
Currently, he is just within the margin that he needs to be getting out of that bottom five. But let's see what the other drivers are able to do,
And
if it is
Vettel
going to be enough
putting
for
in,
Sebastian Vettel.
yes, Vettel putting in a 131.2, so coming in 10th. So he has done enough to get him out of that zone for now, but already dropping into 11th as other drivers are now putting in their times. And he's quickly
Now down to
dropping.
12th position. Around a track that he loves a lot, it would be great to see him doing quite well, but he's already now down into 13th position as Lando Norris is setting the fastest first sector.
Yes, Lando Norris putting a purple first sector.
Lance Stroll is not able to improve enough on his time at the moment. Lance Stroll down in, let me have a look at the timing sheets, 18th position, so quite a few places behind Sebastian Vettel. Let's see if Vettel can stay in that top 10, or top
top
15.
15, yes. We currently see
Mick
that now.
Schumacher then took.
Yes, currently we are at the end of qualifying one. I keep saying a couple of the wrong things there. We are coming to the end. We are ending qualifying one, and we see that looking at the times here, we are almost got all the drivers completed their times. It looks like Latifi, Stroll, Magnussen, Gasly, and Albon are going to be the drivers dropping out after qualifying one. So Magnussen dropping out of qualifying one, while Schumacher. Um,
Is up in 13th position, yes.
so
Definitely important for Mick Schumacher here today. He needed to have a good qualifying session, outperforming his teammates. So that is great to see so far from the Haas
yes,
driver.
so Mick Schumacher making it into Q2. Obviously, just got a couple of. I think we're just waiting on a couple of these qualifying laps to finish, but I do believe that that is going to be our final um, qualifying position. So yes, we do see Mick Schumacher outperform his teammate in Q1.
Yeah, Gasly very angry on the team radio.
Yes, and just to confirm there,
Clearly has
Max
something wrong with the
Verstappen.
brakes.
Yes, just to confirm there, Max Verstappen finishing Q1 on top, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc following closely behind, just zero point 0.1 seconds off, and Fernando Alonso in fourth, whilst Perez fifth. So all of the major teams still in for qualifying. So good to see in terms of a good competitiveness, but no big surprises there in Q1. Uh,
Yeah, I was expecting, I think pretty much what we've seen. I think the few outliers being Mick Schumacher outperforming his teammate, um, Alex Albon just getting into the top 16.
yes, indeed. And Sebastian Vettel does manage to keep himself in for Q2, so just safe. As we say, the
Yes.
drivers dropping out. Latifi, Stroll, Magnussen, Gasly, and Albon. What is also quite interesting is to look at the qualifying times from Q2 and to see that the qualifying times really are quite packed nice together. Uh, only about literally 1 second between first and 15th, so a really tight grid after Q1. Of course, we'll see the top drivers try and pull away a little bit in the final qualifying session, but good to see that it's so packed together, which means that most cars are finding decent pace around this track so far.
Yes, of course. I'm just currently trying to pull up the free practice 3 times just to see a comparison between the two, as I think would be quite interesting. Because I think already we have topped the fastest time from practice 2, or practice 3, rather.
Yes, so now we are heading
Yes.
into a zone that we don't quite know how quickly they will get around this track and how much time they could improve. I'm sure we'll see what sub 130s. Um,
Well, so far in free practice 3, Max was able to do a 130.6. So I think that is very similar to what his last time was out in Q1. So I think we should possibly get below the 130s, maybe a 129. I would not be surprised to see happening later in this race or in this session, as Max did a 130.2 in Q1.
yes, and a very frustrating. Yes, the
Yeah.
AlphaTauri is really struggling in that first qualifying session.
Both cars having brake issues, which is very interesting.
Yes, a very frustrated couple of drivers there from the AlphaTauri, Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda, pretty much shouting and yelling at their engineers on the radio, very clearly upset with everything that's happening in the car in that session there.
Yes, and I think Pierre Gasly now has no more, well, doesn't mind uh, just saying how it is anymore, as he's not going to be with AlphaTauri for next season. So he doesn't mind just screaming and shouting at them anymore.
Yes, of course, one would want to try and save face for his new team, of course. So we would still want to try and see him be as professional as possible with regards to his team orders, but clearly not happy there after that first Q1, as he's dropped out of the qualifying session. He will not be participating in Q2. So yes, a very unhappy driver there as he's walking in his pit, and you can just see from the way he is walking, it's not a happy chap.
No, definitely not. I think this is one of the first times this season that we have seen him being outperformed by his teammate.
Yes, and now we are beginning Q2. So 15 minutes of qualifying 2, and the Ferrari is out on track early on. So let us see
Yes,
how
both
Q2
Ferraris getting
fares.
out on track early just to get possibly some extra track time over the Red Bulls, just maybe not feeling as comfortable as they'd like to be at this point in the qualifying session. Both Ferraris at this point in qualifying out on used tires, so we would expect them to do 2 runs during the session.
Interesting there, we had a little radio message there saying looks like the sun is out, so potentially a slower track for qualifying. So an interesting little piece of information there. So maybe not seeing some
Yes.
sub 130s in this qualifying 2 session.
Yeah, that obviously comes about because uh, when the track temperature rises quite a bit, the tire life just falls quite a bit, as well as the tire temperature increases a bit too much, just decreasing the amount of grip that you have and not being able to extract as much out on a lap. So let's see now, as we have Carlos Sainz starting his first flying lap, we have Charles Leclerc closely behind him. So we should get some times quite quickly from the Ferrari so far. The only drivers out on track right now.
Yes, and following each other quite quickly. Sainz putting in a purple sector over his teammate Leclerc. Only just, of course, but interesting that Sainz is first out on track and Leclerc following in his stead, and Leclerc putting in a slower first section, only literally by 0.03, but still, Sainz going around slightly quicker than his teammate at the moment. As we now see some other cars joining the track as Sergio Perez and Sebastian Vettel make their way out. As we have our first time for Q2, still not a slow time at all, very close to the top time in Q1 from Carlos Sainz, a 130.4. His teammate Charles Leclerc cannot better that, it's a 130.48, so only 0.04 between the two Ferrari times that they start Q2.
Yes, very close between the two of them. Interesting to see just how happy, well, how comfortable Carlos Sainz is in the car at the moment. You can just see how bumpy it is around the circuit, though, with the visor cam of Carlos Sainz. Just how much he's bumping and bouncing throughout the entire circuit.
Yes, I mean, now I do have all cars out on track.
Carlos Sainz's lap may be deleted as it looks like he may have gotten over the white line during one of the corners. As we are currently following Max Verstappen starting his, oh sorry, Sergio Perez starting his hot lap. It's always amazing to see the different hats and helmets that the Japanese fans have. They really do go all out for a race weekend here in Suzuka.
Yes, a very dedicated and passionate fan base here in Japan. Of course, Japan have quite a good history in Formula One with a couple of Japanese racing drivers. Yuki Tsunoda currently representing the country for AlphaTauri. So, of course, he'll be wanting to put in as good a weekend as possible in front of his home fans. As we now follow the two Red Bulls doing their qualifying lap in Q2. Let's see if they can improve on the Ferrari times. So now Max Verstappen goes fastest in Q2. So, of course, now following and looking at the times, we have Max Verstappen putting a 1:30.3, so pretty much almost the exact same time as he put in Q1. So, not seeing a dramatic improvement on times so far in this qualifying session. We were warned, however, from one of the drivers that the track is heating up as a result of the sun, so it's going to have an effect on the tires and their degradation and their ability to hold grip around this track. So we wouldn't see the times improve too much, and we would not see a faster track. So yes, currently have Max Verstappen in P1 with the two Ferraris following him. Ocon has gone fourth fastest, so Perez will need to probably get back out on track as he comes into the pits. Um, as he will need to improve his time as he's already dropped all the way down to ninth. And Tsunoda still complaining about his brakes. He had brake issues in Q1 and still complaining about them, not having fun there. So AlphaTauri really going to be looking at themselves after this qualifying session as they currently are the focus of problems. Uh, Esteban Ocon putting in decent times here. The AlphaTauri performing quite well so far in this qualifying session as Ricardo goes fifth on the grid right now. So it's quite a good race qualifying lap from Ricardo. So currently looking at all the drivers putting in 130s. As I say, a very, very close qualifying session so far. The 15 drivers out on track, very little to separate them all. All the way down at the 12th is all in the 130s. So very, very good to see such close times being put in. Yes, and now we see most of the cars back in the pits right now, so no big hot laps happening. Drivers who haven't really been following too much of the session are the Mercs. Hamilton and Russell currently sitting in 6th and 9th, so not the quickest times from Mercedes, but enough to get them into Q3, which is all that they're looking for at the moment. So yes, very little activity out on track at the moment. Nobody out on track indeed. So I'm sure you'll see a big rush towards the end, and then we'll have some big excitement as given the grid is so close together. You'll see drivers drop out and potentially maybe a couple of scares happen if somebody should make a mistake in Q2, because we will see drivers go out and only really perform one lap. We could see Max Verstappen's getting a new set of softs being put on the car. So a lot of drivers coming in and replacing their tires. They decided that in the middle of the Q2 session is going to be when they set up for a new, fresh set of tires. So as I say, we'll see some very interesting things. We've got 5 minutes to go in Q2, so you'll likely see all these drivers come out with just their out lap and then their last lap of Q2 being their final qualifying lap.
Yes, quite an interesting grid still at the moment with Ocon still doing very well. Alpine's performing quite well with Esteban Ocon up in fourth. It was quite funny. I don't know if you saw, but there was a Japanese fan who had a sign saying Ferrari hire me as a strategist.
Yes, taking the mickey out of obviously Ferrari's rather poor strategy this season and their big mix-ups and problems they've had throughout. Um, of course, now looking now at the car of Sebastian Vettel, who is currently sitting in 12th, so will be dropping out of of the qualifying session if he should remain there and not improve on his time. And another interesting name there is Landon Norris, who's also in 11th, so also in
Yes,
a
with Daniel Ricciardo all the way up in fifth. Very
yes.
interesting.
So all the
Looks
cars in the
like the
pits.
Hasses are about to release Mick Schumacher.
I'll be very interested to see if Mick Schumacher can put in a good qualifying time and see if he can make another Q3 session, which he's done a couple of times this season, only a couple of times. But good news
Yes,
for him,
as
of
we
course,
currently have.
outperforming his teammate.
Yes, definitely is very, very much needed at the moment. Obviously, with that big shunt on Friday, Haas were not impressed at all. He needs to now just have a clean rest of the season to possibly keep his seat at Haas. If not, then to hopefully prove himself maybe for that Williams seat, which is open at the moment.
Yes, of course. Williams still looking for a driver and not made a final decision or announced a decision as to who their driver will be next season. So we now see all the cars joining track. Um, so
Yeah, very interesting that uh, Red Bull were able to poach the Mercedes driver from them because I was expecting Nick de Vries to go to the likes of Williams.
yes, it is very interesting that Red Bull has managed to secure the services of Nick de Vries. Of course,
Yes.
that could potentially result in some interesting driver lineups in the future. Hopefully, you might see two Dutch drivers in the Red Bull. Um,
Yes. We currently see, I think, the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, yes, with him out of the car at the moment, but getting in now. I do not think we will get any more running from the top three in this session. Obviously, their lap times being fast enough to stay there at the moment without any worries. So we have Sebastian Vettel just ramping up for his final flying lap. as he is starting it now. Let's see if Sebastian Vettel is able to just get himself out of Q3.
Yes, a very interesting watch now. As I say, the grid currently so packed. The times only with all pretty much in the 130s. So if anybody can improve on times, we should be seeing some big surprises potentially in this qualifying session. Everyone really has to put in a very good lap, otherwise they will be in risk of falling out with these times being so close together. Which is always good to see when all the cars are putting in very competitive times with each other. I mean, still, even looking at the fastest times from Q1 and comparing them with Q2, just between first and uh, and 20th,
Sergio Perez is now put in the fastest first sector. Sorry to interrupt you. But Sergio Perez seems to now be getting the hang of things.
yes, indeed, Perez putting in 2 purple sectors now as he's going to complete his lap. Should, if he just holds it together, put in the fastest lap in this Q2. As he does now, 129.9, so the first sub 130 in this qualifying session. So good drive from Perez there. So we now see some movement in the grid. Vettel goes 6th fastest with a 130.6. So Vettel putting in a fantastic time there to hopefully stay with for Q3. Schumacher unfortunately not managing to put in a decent time there. As I say that, yeah, drops into 15th right now. Lando Norris doing a good drive there as well, launching himself into 5th and then being overtaken. Now Hamilton putting a good time as he goes into 4th. Russell currently right now at risk as he's completing his lap. Everyone putting in quicker laps right now.
Fernando Alonso up into P2.
Alonso, yes, as you say, P2. A brilliant drive from Alonso there. And George
Yes,
Russell
I think we're
saves
seeing
himself.
this track evolving quite a lot right now. As Lando Norris, his lap time of 130.5. Norris now being able to outperform his teammate at least.
Indeed.
So Daniel Ricciardo is pushed down into that dropout zone, or actually pushed into the dropout now, as Vettel is just on that dropout zone. And he does make it into Q3, which is brilliant for Sebastian Vettel.
Yes, so dramatic improvement from Vettel. Been struggling so far on this track this weekend, but managing to just get into Q2 and now managing to just get into Q3 as well. So Vettel managing to pull it out of the hat when it counts. So almost done now with yes,
You're going
we
to see
are.
an incident here in the pit lane? What happens here? AlphaTauri just going very slowly there, but Mick Schumacher overtaking, just leaving the pit lane. It is out of the pit lane. We did see something like that a few years ago with Sebastian Vettel. That AlphaTauri is going very slowly though. Yeah, no, Yuki Tsunoda just making silly comments at the moment, in my opinion, on the radio. Just saying that Mick Schumacher was weaving too much and being dangerous on the straight. He was definitely far enough behind that Mick Schumacher was warming up his tyres. So I think just once again showing the immaturity from Yuki Tsunoda.
So Q2 finished. The drivers that drop out, unfortunately, Mick Schumacher, Guan Yu Zhou, Yuki Tsunoda, Valtteri Bottas, and Daniel Ricciardo of the McLaren. So Daniel Ricciardo not making it into Q3. But drivers in Q3 are the 2 Ferraris, the 2 Red Bulls, the 2 Mercedes, Alonso and Ocon of the Alpines, and Lando Norris and Sebastian Vettel, McLaren and Aston Martin, respectively. So interesting Q3 lined up. Pretty much all of the best drivers on the grid in the top 10 here. So we'll be interested to see how they fare. The Alpine's putting in some very quick times towards the end of Q2, so potential dark horses leading into Q3.
Yes, definitely. I think they can put themselves up into possibly the top five, which we saw obviously last weekend in Singapore, how strong Fernando Alonso was, especially during the race. If he hadn't had that engine blowout, he could have kept Max Verstappen behind him.
Yes, correct. As I say, Alonso doing a fantastic race last weekend until the engine blowout, which was so unfortunate for him, of course. Um, but we have seen our first sub 130 today. Will we see more sub 130s in this last qualifying session?
I think if we are going to see more of them, it is going to be in this session for sure. Obviously, people just extracting everything that they can out of the cars now during this last session. So it should definitely be a very good one to watch. A few minutes now till the start of Quali 3. Uh, The one thing that I do not like about this Japanese race weekend is obviously just start times of everything. It is just so early here in South Africa.
Now, it is very early getting up to watch these these qualifying sessions and these practice sessions. And the worst thing is that the race is going to be earlier than this qualifying session tomorrow. So going to have to wake up very early tomorrow to watch the race. Yuki Tsunoda trying to save face with his team, saying that he tried his best there for his lap. Team saying that they were happy
Yes.
with his time.
Yes, and Daniel Ricciardo just missing out on Q3 by 3 milliseconds. Just showing how close the gaps are between these cars this year.
So what is as fantastic to see so far in qualifying today is how close all the times are. Some very, very, very close times been put in from all the different teams.
Yeah, Pierre Gasly at the moment being quite outspoken on, well, in the media, just saying that he asked not to be put out in traffic and the team did do it, just criticizing the team, saying that they put Yuki out in clean air but didn't do it for him. Yeah, I don't really know what more to comment about that.
I mean, it's. I think it's just stretching to find excuses. Unfortunately, I think his car had brake issues during that session, and also I think ultimately the drivers around him didn't have clean air and they were absolutely fine. So one could argue that you want clean air, of course, but I think unfortunately just not a great session for Pierre Gasly with just brake issues in general. And we're just chatting now to the Alpine team principal, who's just explaining that he's got the pace that Alpine are managing to achieve so far, not just this race but this season. Saying they've had a very quick car the all year, and they're hoping for a good qualifying three now with both their drivers there. Of course, we've seen the times be very very close. So if we see a very good lap put in from either driver, and we see them really stick to and push the limits of this track, you may well see them put in a completely bizarre time and perhaps see a front of the grid start from Alpine. But of course, they will have to try and get ahead of the Red Bulls, Ferraris, and the Mercs, of course.
Yes, as we currently have a green light on Q3. Very excited team radio from Sebastian Vettel as he got out of Q2 into Q3. Also running a very special helmet this weekend. It's quite a cool design actually for Sebastian Vettel. His helmet is meant to look like the Arai helmet box that the helmets actually come in. It's quite a very cool design that he has got running this weekend.
I'm going to listen to predictions for this qualifying session, and pretty much being said that it's going to be Max and the two Ferraris that are going to be competing this qualifying session. I think I would be immature to say the Alpines are not in contention, as we did see them put in some very good times in Q2, and given the fact that times are, as we say, so close so far in all these qualifying sessions, I fail to see where we're going to find a much quicker time.
Is that an unsafe release?
I would
It was
argue
close.
no, as Charles Leclerc does not really have to slam on brakes too much.
Definitely close between those two cars, but I don't think it will be deemed an unsafe release, as we have Esteban Ocon setting a fastest middle sector so far in the session. Perez now putting in a personal best second sector.
Yes, so now we have all of our cars on track, starting their fast laps. So we'll be interested to see how we fare this qualifying session. We're in for a very interesting one, as we say. So starting it off now. And we have a first purple sector from Max Verstappen. Well, not the first, but we have his first purple sector of the session. He's put in the quickest first sector. Charles Leclerc currently running out on track in front. And Ocon puts in the fastest time first at 1:31.1, so a little bit of a slower time in Q3 for Ocon. Not sure it'll hold up very long, as we now see Charles Leclerc put a 1:29.5, so a much quicker time from the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc there. 1:29.5 is really going to be quite a difficult time to beat, as Perez puts a 1:29.9 in. Carlos Sainz puts 1:29.7, so all eyes on Max Verstappen to see if he can improve on the two Ferraris.
Yes, as he has just put in the fastest first sector now. So let's see what Max Verstappen is able to achieve, as he does put it in the fastest time of a 1:29.3.
Yes, Max Verstappen managing to put a 1:29.3. We do have four drivers with sub 130 times. The two Mercs only managing a 1:39.9. As Alonso goes 1:30.3, so Alonso putting himself in fifth behind the two Ferraris and two Red Bulls. The only driver that is yet to put a time on the board yet is Sebastian Vettel.
Yes, Max Verstappen at this moment, 0.2 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc. That is quite a bit of time to have to make up, but it is still pretty much the blink of an eye.
Yes, and it seems
What's quite
that
interesting is
sorry.
what's interesting is that we have the Mercedes down in sixth and seventh, just not able to fight for the top few positions at the moment. Oh, that was very dangerous.
Ooh, very, very big incident on track. Max Verstappen out on track.
That could have been a very big accident.
Lando Norris there, seeing Max Verstappen going slowly around the track and deciding to gun it and Max Verstappen just hitting the accelerator and getting a lot of oversteer as Lando Norris is coming up behind at pace, and Max
Through
Verstappen
130. Oh,
almost
yes.
going into him. So Sebastian Vettel, the only car out on track, trying to set his fastest lap in clean air, putting in some decent
Yes, quite clever,
times.
just being out of sync at the moment, just to get that clean air. Good work from Aston Martin, just to let Sebastian Vettel have the best opportunity.
Yes, and he puts in a 130.5, which is quicker than the two Mercedes and of
Yes.
Lando Norris and Ocon. Of course, however, what Sebastian Vettel will want to do now is race back to the pits as quickly as possible so that he can try and get out there with the pack just before the end of the session as well for a final lap. I think you might well see if Vettel wants to do a final lap in this session, you might well see a pit stop almost to try and get him out there as quick as possible.
Yes, as we see a replay of Max Verstappen just apologizing to Lando Norris as they drive past each other on the track. Obviously, that moment was not intentional between the two, just very bad timing from both of them.
Yes, and interestingly enough, the turn 15 incident involving Norris and Verstappen will be investigated after this session. I doubt that we'll see any penalties or any um,
Reprimands.
reprimands, but it was quite a dangerous incident. So I also wouldn't be surprised if you did see some things happen as a result of it. But it'd be difficult to argue for either driver, as technically Norris shouldn't be looking to overtake in that scenario.
Sebastian Vettel, I think, calling it for today's qualifying. This is obviously being Sebastian Vettel's favorite circuit. Just so happy to see him having a good last qualifying session here today.
Yeah, so now we see all of our other cars coming out for their final out lap. Um, Interesting enough, the Mercs were delayed in coming out, which is a risky factor going into this because you'll want to try and get two laps in because in case they go round and they drop down low, they want to try and get another attempt at a fast lap straight away. So we are now following Max Verstappen out in front as he's overtaken. Ferrari decides that he's going too slowly for his likes.
Yes, as they go through Spoon just to finish up their lap. As we hear Sebastian Vettel talking in Japanese, just thanking the fans. We now see Charles Leclerc just backing up right before the last chicane just to set his fast lap up as he is about to now start. DRS is open and he starts his last flying lap here in Q3.
So very interesting. We should see most of these drivers uh, have a second crack at well, when we say most of these drivers, only the front four drivers could
Charles Leclerc so
potentially.
far not being able to improve on Max Verstappen's first sector, but just 0.033 off of Max's first sector time.
Yes, however, has put in a fastest second sector at 40.1, so potentially see a new fastest lap here from Charles Leclerc, and not he does not manage to improve it, just behind Max Verstappen, literally 0.01 seconds behind Max
These
Verstappen's
cars are
time.
just so close this year.
And we see
It's
Sainz
amazing.
also just behind Leclerc, not being able to push Verstappen off the pedestal. So that should mean that Max Verstappen takes pole for tomorrow's race.
Amazing to see how two constructors can make a car that is just 0.01 seconds around a track difference between those two cars. That is just incredible. Max Verstappen at this moment not improving on his time,
Yes, but I don't think he will be too concerned. But of
as
course,
Sergio
Leclerc will be
Perez
going round
finishes
again.
in fourth. Lewis Hamilton at the moment is improving on his fastest time. Max did improve though on his middle sector, so possibly he may just take a little bit of time out of his fastest lap. Just see how good the turn in is on that Red Bull. It is honestly just incredible. Verstappen does not improve on his time, but takes pole here in Suzuka.
And let's see now, both obviously Ferraris going round, but yeah, not doing fast laps here. So the Mercs, a frustrating day for them as they go in slow. Ocon finishing in fifth there, but Russell eighth, Hamilton in sixth. So our final grid order for tomorrow, we see Max Verstappen on pole, the two Ferraris following him. So Charles Leclerc also on the front of the grid, Sainz and Perez third and fourth, Ocon fifth, Hamilton sixth, Alonso 7, Russell 8, Vettel 9, and Lando Norris 10.
Max's first pole position here at Suzuka, looking like he is having a great time in that car today. I don't blame him. This circuit is just such an amazing track to drive.
Ooh,
Ooh, he's lost bits of his car on his last lap. I don't know where that came from. Maybe from the floor. Yes, it looks like it may have been bits of his diffuser that fell off. Well, good qualifying here today. What do you think your race predictions will be for tomorrow?
well, I think one has to back Max given the fact that he's on pole. So one would assume a pole position for Max should result in a race win. We know how good Red Bull are at controlling their race strategy when they've got a driver on the front of the grid. Um, so Max Verstappen should be
Yes.
favoured to take pole, but I would not be surprised to see both Ferraris also finish where they are right now in second and third, if not also challenge Verstappen for that first place. We've seen times be very quick today, and it's an ever-changing circuit, so yeah, it should be quite a good race tomorrow.
Yes, definitely. And I think Max will definitely want to convert this pole into a race win here at the home of Honda.
Interesting races that I'll be
Eighth
looking out
time
for.
this interesting statistic that this is the eighth time this season that this has been our starting three.
It's just proving that the Ferraris and the Red Bulls really are um, just a class above the other cars. Of course, the Ferraris, Red Bulls putting the sub 130s, and the rest of the field only 130 and above. So just showing the difference in between the cars. But what this does hopefully say is that next season, as I say, I keep talking about next season, but I really am very much looking forward to next season because we should see all of the teams put in research and development into their car for the new season, and we should see some dramatic improvements from some teams, such as hopefully Merck, and we should see an even more competitive and far more competitive season next season. Um, but of course, still watching this season, we've got Max Verstappen on pole yet again. So one would surely have to back him to win the race tomorrow, provided no issues happen and no incidents should occur. But of course, you never know with Formula One. Stranger things have happened. So that is the end of Q1. Q1 of the qualifying session for Sakusa in Japan.
Yes, definitely a great qualifying session here at Suzuka. Should be a very interesting race tomorrow, as we have not seen a lot of the race pace for this weekend. So it seems we'll truly be getting to terms with their car tomorrow during the race, as they obviously only had wet weather um, running during FP1 and FP2, with just running their quali sims this morning in FP3.
Yes, and indeed, what is quite an interesting thing to look at is also Ocon and Alonso, in the fact that Alonso for most of the first half of the season was far outperforming his teammate, whereas you now see Ocon there and thereabouts with Alonso, beating him today in qualifying, and Ocon really showing some good pace around the track and really showing his class as a driver, and definitely putting his name up as to be one of the better drivers on the grid. So a good outing for him today as well. So beating both Mercs.
A lot of uncertainty at the moment over the weather for tomorrow's race. Well, whether it's dry or wet, tomorrow should definitely be a very good session to watch.
Indeed, and actually would be quite fun to have a bit of wet weather occur, of course, because if it should begin raining in the middle of the race, what we will see, of course, is strategies take a big part in the race. So hopefully we do get some interesting weather, so that we do have different strategies happening and could have a very interesting race unfold.
Yes, definitely. It always makes the race very interesting when we have interchangeable conditions. Just from a strategy point of view, it's always very good to watch. I definitely think we will also see at least a crash or two, or at least a few offs tomorrow, as it is just such a difficult circuit.
Yes, so that is qualifying done. Just a little bit of uncertainty regarding Max Verstappen's incident with Lando Norris, but I doubt we'll see any penalties for that. So shouldn't be anything. But that was qualifying for Sakusa. Thank you for joining us. We have enjoyed watching it. It's been very good to see how close the times are between all the cars. A packed Sakusa circuit with regards to the crowd, getting ready for a very good race tomorrow. So just to remind you, Max Verstappen on pole, the two Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Sainz following him, and then Perez in fourth. So a very interesting race to see Ferraris versus Red Bulls yet again. Hopefully we see some interesting weather maybe play out tomorrow to make for a very interesting race. Just to finish off quickly, Reese, your prediction, your front three, just quickly. One, two, three, just go. Drivers.
I think we'll see Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and let's say Sergio Perez.
Okay, so your change in the top three is seeing Perez take Sainz. Is an interesting prediction. Sainz has generally done quite well when he started ahead of Perez on the grid, but I would not be surprised to see that similar sort of thing. Perez has had some fantastic starts for quite a few races now, where you see the generally the Red Bull does get away quite well. Can't really use Max Verstappen's start last weekend as an example, but generally Red Bull do start better than the Ferrari on the grid. So yeah, should be an interesting race to watch tomorrow. Of course, my front three is also, I think I'm also probably going to say that I'm going to say it's going to be Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, and then the rest of the grid, of course, probably be led by Sainz. So yes, that was Cruiser Qualifying 2022. Really in for an interesting race tomorrow. You've been on Forever Motorsports. Thank you very much for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed, and we will catch you for tomorrow's race.
Yes,
So long.
bright and early.
Yeah, very, very early. Well, cool. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.